Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am Dr. Amna Sajid and today we are going to discuss vitamin A. By the end of the lectures on vitamins, you people should be able to define and classify vitamins, differentiate between water soluble and fat soluble vitamins, list the different forms of each vitamin, list the major sources of vitamins, discuss the important factors involved in intestinal absorption of vitamins, discuss the biological functions of each vitamin, and correlate the biological functions with deficiency disorders or toxicity related disturbances caused by each vitamin. So, before moving on to vitamin A, which is today's topic, we should know what is meant by vitamins. Vitamins are a heterogeneous group of organic micronutrients required in small quantities for normal bodily functions, and most of these vitamins they cannot be synthesized in the body and therefore they need to be supplied in the diet. So in other words, we can say that most vitamins are essential micronutrients. And how they are important for normal bodily functions: most of these vitamins are acting as coenzymes for vital biochemical reactions. So we have discussed what is meant by vitamins. Now what is meant by the term vitamins? Vitamins of a specific vitamin are structurally similar compounds that have the same biological activity, and they are also known as isotels. So in other words, we can say that vitamins are isomers of a specific vitamin. They are structurally similar but they possess the same biological activity. They differ only slightly in terms of their structure. So this is an example of vitamins of a vitamin known as pyridoxine or vitamin B6. So these four different forms: pyridoxal, pyridoxine, pyridoxamine, and pyridoxal 5-phosphate, they are all structurally similar and they possess the biological activity which is associated with vitamin B6. So therefore they are known as vitamins of vitamin B6. So now we move on to the classification of vitamins. So vitamins can be classified into two ways: on the basis of their solubility and also on the basis of their functions. On the basis of solubility, vitamins are divided into two groups: water soluble vitamins and fat soluble vitamins. And water soluble vitamins can be further categorized into B complex vitamins and non B complex vitamins. Non B complex vitamins include just one vitamin known as vitamin C or ascorbic acid, whereas B complex vitamins include 8 vitamins. Now, this was all about water soluble vitamins. They can be divided into B complex vitamins and non B complex vitamins. Non B complex vitamin includes just one vitamin, vitamin C, whereas B complex vitamins includes 8 vitamins in total. Okay, fat soluble vitamins. These include vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin K, and vitamin E. Okay, so this was the classification of vitamins based on solubility, whether vitamins are soluble in water or whether they are soluble in fats. Now we are going to discuss the classification of vitamins on the basis of their function, because the B complex vitamins, they can be further divided into three groups: energy releasing B complex vitamins, hematopoietic vitamins, and others. Now, hematopoietic vitamins we have discussed previously in a very detailed lecture in the previous module. They include folic acid and vitamin B12. So these are two vitamins belonging to the category of B complex water soluble vitamins that can be identified as hematopoietic vitamins: folic acid and vitamin B12. Now, the other group is energy releasing B complex vitamins. Now all these vitamins that are grouped under energy releasing vitamins, they act as coenzymes for biochemical reactions that are ultimately going to release energy. So these vitamins are required as coenzymes for biochemical processes that are vital for energy yielding reactions, and these include thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, biotin, and pantothenic acid. Now the third group in B complex vitamins is termed as includes pyridoxine or vitamin B6, and in this group the three different forms of vitamin B6 have been shown in the chart. So I am going to repeat once more. Vitamins on the basis of their solubility can be divided into water soluble and fat soluble vitamins. Fat soluble vitamins include four vitamins: vitamins A, D, E, and K. Water soluble vitamins can be further divided into B complex vitamins and non B complex vitamins. Now B complex vitamins on the basis of their functions can be further divided into energy releasing, hematopoietic, and other vitamins group. Okay, this slide is a very important slide because it is showing the important differences between fat soluble vitamins and water soluble vitamins. Now fat soluble vitamins, as the name suggests, are soluble in fat. They will be insoluble in water, whereas water soluble vitamins are soluble in water. Now, fat soluble vitamins are absorbed in the intestinal cells along with other lipids or fats, and we will discuss the absorption of fat soluble vitamins in a bit more detail later. And the absorption of water soluble vitamins from the intestine is very simple because they are absorbed directly from the intestinal cells into the blood. Okay, fat soluble vitamins, once they enter the blood, they require carrier proteins known as binding proteins for their transport inside the blood. Without interacting with these carrier proteins, fat soluble vitamins would be insoluble in blood and therefore they could not be transported. In contrast to fat soluble vitamins, water soluble vitamins require no carrier protein for their transport in the blood. Now, another very important difference between these two groups of vitamins is that fat soluble vitamins, as they are soluble in fat, they can be deposited and stored in different sites in the body, especially in the liver and adipose tissue. Whereas water soluble vitamins, they are usually not stored inside the body and they are readily excreted in urine because of their water solubility. Okay, as fat soluble vitamins can be stored inside the body, therefore, if fat soluble vitamins become deficient in our diet, then their deficiency symptoms do not manifest rapidly. Instead, it takes a little while, maybe even a few months in some cases, before deficiency symptoms of fat soluble vitamins are observed. On the other hand, water soluble vitamins, they are not stored in any appreciable amounts inside the body. Instead, they are being continuously excreted in urine. Therefore, if water soluble vitamins are deficient in our diet, then their deficiency symptoms manifest very quickly. Okay, because of the same difference between the storage properties of these two groups of vitamins, another important difference arises, and that is toxicity. Toxicity or hypervitaminosis is seen more commonly with fat soluble vitamins, and it is very rare in case of water soluble vitamins. And the reason is the same, because fat soluble vitamins are stored inside the body. So if excessive amounts of fat soluble vitamins are taken in our diet or in the form of supplements, then it may result in toxicity. uh, Toxicity of water soluble vitamins is very rare because they are being, even if excessive amounts are ingested, they will be readily excreted in the urine. Okay, in case of deficiency of fat soluble vitamins, then that deficiency can be corrected by administration of single large doses, as the amount contained in the single large dose of the fat soluble vitamin, some of it will be utilized by the body cells and the rest will be stored inside the body. But in case of water soluble vitamins, regular dietary supply or dietary supplements are required in order to correct any deficiency symptoms. This is a repetition of the previous slide. This again shows the major features of fat soluble vitamins that we have previously discussed, so we do not need to discuss them again. Okay, this again is a very important slide because it is showing the different coenzyme forms of different vitamins. But right now, as you haven't studied all these vitamins, therefore just save this slide and revisit this slide once lectures on vitamins are over. So now we are going to discuss vitamin A. Vitamin A, as you should be knowing by now, is a fat soluble vitamin. It is soluble in fats and insoluble in water, and it performs many different functions inside the body, and its multiple functions are a result of its mechanism of action that we will discuss later. So, vitamin A inside our body is vital for the proper functioning of visual system, reproductive system, immune system, and growth and maintenance of epithelial tissues. Now, vitamin A is used as a collective term for several related biologically active molecules. So, there are different vitamins of vitamin A, and these vitamins of vitamin A include a class of compounds known as retinoids, and examples of retinoids are retinol, retinal, and retinyl esters, and these retinoids are found in animal tissues. They are not found in plants. And an important point about retinoids is that these are the preformed forms of vitamin A, so they do not need to be converted into any other form. These are preformed forms of vitamin A which possess biological activity. There is another group of compounds which is associated with vitamin A, and they are known as carotenoids. Now, carotenoids themselves, they are not biologically active, but they can be metabolized inside our body to yield retinoids. So carotenoids are basically precursors of vitamin A. They themselves do not contain biological activity, but they can be converted to retinoids which are biologically active. So as carotenoids can be metabolized inside the body to yield retinoids, they are known as precursors of vitamin A, or they are also known as provitamins. And another major difference from retinoids is that carotenoids are found in plants. They are not found in animal tissues. And out of these carotenoids, beta carotene, which is found in a number of vegetables such as carrots, it is the most important compound. So this is the repetition of the same points. Now this again shows that beta carotene, which is the most important carotenoid for us, it can be oxidatively broken down in the intestinal cells to yield two molecules of retinol, and retinol, as you know, is a preformed form of vitamin A. So these are the different forms of vitamin A. The first three forms are retinoids, and the last structure is of beta carotene, which is a carotenoid or a provitamin or a precursor of vitamin A. You people do not need to memorize the structures. The only thing you need to remember is that retinol, retinal, and retinoic acid, These are retinoids, whereas beta carotene is an example of carotenoid with vitamin A activity. Now, retinol, as you can see, is an alcohol as it contains a hydroxyl group. Retinol is an aldehyde and contains CHO group, whereas retinoic acid is a carboxylic acid containing COOH group. Now, retinol can be oxidized in our body to form retinal, and retinal can be reduced back to form retinol. So retinol and retinal are interchangeable. They can be the conversion of retinol to retinal is a reversible process, which means that retinal can be reconverted back to retinol. And retinal can also be oxidized to form retinoic acid, but once retinoic acid is formed, it is final. It cannot be reconverted to either retinal or retinol. And the last structure given in this slide is of beta carotene. As you can see that beta carotene is a longer molecule as compared to the retinoids shown above, and this beta carotene molecule can be broken down inside our intestinal cells to yield two molecules of retinol. So this slide shows the different dietary sources of retinoids, and they include foods of animal origin such as liver, kidney, milk, cream, butter, eggs and fish oils. An important point to remember is that vitamin A inside animal tissues is mostly present in the form of retinyl esters. So vitamin A is stored in the bodies of animals including us in the form of retinyl esters. And what are retinyl esters? These are basically retinol molecules chemically attached to fatty acids. So retinol, when combines with free fatty acids, it leads to the formation of retinyl esters. And in our body, vitamin A is stored in the form of retinyl esters. Now, this slide shows the dietary sources of carotenoids. As I have discussed earlier, carotenoids are obtained from plant sources. They are not present in animal tissues. And the most important carotenoid for us is beta carotene, which is found in a number of yellow, orange and dark green colored vegetables and also yellow fleshed fruits. So examples of such carotene rich foods are carrots, papaya, mangoes, sweet potatoes, pumpkin, spinach, etc. So this again shows the different dietary sources of carotenoids. So now we are going to talk about the absorption and transport of vitamin A. I'm going to explain the intestinal absorption and transport of vitamin A with the help of a diagram. So this diagram shows the absorption of fat soluble vitamins such as vitamin A in the intestine. Now, as we have discussed earlier, fat soluble vitamins are going to be absorbed along with other lipids or fats. So, what happens in case of vitamin A? Retinyl esters, which are present in foods of animal origin, they are going to be present in the lumen of the small intestine. Inside the lumen, they are going to be acted upon by enzymes and broken down into retinol and free fatty acids. Now, this retinol and free fatty acids, along with other fat soluble vitamins and other lipids, they are going to be acted upon by bile salts and they are going to form spherical aggregates which are known as micelles, or you can also pronounce them as micelles. Okay, these micelles are basically spherical aggregates and they are composed of an outer covering of amphipathic lipids and bile salts and an inner core containing hydrophobic lipids along with fat soluble vitamins including retinol and free fatty acids. So micelles are basically aggregates whose covering is made up of amphipathic lipids and bile salts. What are amphipathic lipids? These are those lipids which have both a hydrophilic portion and a hydrophobic portion. For example, phospholipids. So, the hydrophilic portion of these amphipathic lipids and the hydrophilic portion of bile salts is going to face outwards towards the aqueous environment, and their hydrophobic tails are going to face inwards towards the center of the aggregate, and at the core or center of the aggregate are present fat soluble vitamins including vitamin A and other types of lipids which are hydrophobic such as cholesterol and triacylglycerols. So fat soluble vitamins along with other lipids are going to be transported from the intestinal lumen to the intestinal cells in the form of micelles. And once inside the intestinal cells, these micelles are going to release the lipids and fat soluble vitamins. And once inside the intestinal cells, retinol is going to recombine with free fatty acids to form retinyl esters. And now these retinyl esters are going to be packaged inside specialized particles known as chylomicrons, which are a type of lipoproteins, and these chylomicrons are going to transport fat soluble vitamins and lipids from the intestinal cells into the lymph, then into the bloodstream, and ultimately to the liver. So, what are chylomicrons? Chylomicrons are lipoproteins, and these are also spherical particles, and they are similar in structure to micelles. By that I mean that the outer surface of chylomicrons is made up of amphipathic lipids such as phospholipids, whose hydrophilic portions are going to face towards the outside and whose hydrophobic tails are going to face towards the core of this particle, and at the center or core of the chylomicron are present fat soluble vitamins along with other lipids such as cholesterol esters and triacylglycerols. So retinyl esters are transported from the intestinal cells to the lymph in the form of chylomicrons, and from the lymph chylomicrons are ultimately going to enter the bloodstream and going to be carried to the liver where retinyl esters are going to be stored. And when different body tissues need vitamin A, then the vitamin A stored inside the liver is going to be released in the form of retinol, not in the form of retinyl esters. It is going to be released in the form of retinol, and retinol is going to be carried in the blood by special carrier proteins known as retinol binding proteins. So, I am going to repeat once more. Vitamin A is carried from the intestinal lumen to the intestinal cells in the form of aggregates known as micelles, and once inside the intestinal cells they are going to be repackaged into special particles called chylomicrons. Chylomicrons are lipoproteins that are going to transport these fat soluble vitamins including vitamin A to the lymph. They are going to transport them from the intestinal cells to the lymph, then to the blood, and ultimately to the liver. And from the liver, vitamin A is going to be released in the form of retinol, and it is going to be transported in the blood with the help of carrier proteins known as retinol binding protein. So, this is the structure of our micelle. As you can see, the outer covering is made up of amphipathic lipids and bile salts. Now, bile salts also have a hydrophilic portion and a hydrophobic portion, and the hydrophilic portions are going to be facing towards the outside where aqueous environment is present, and the hydrophobic regions are going to face towards the inside. And at the center or core of this aggregate are present fat soluble vitamins and lipids such as cholesterol. And this is the structure of chylomicron. It has a similar structure. The outer covering is made up of amphipathic lipids such as phospholipids, whose hydrophilic portions are facing towards the aqueous environment, and the hydrophobic portions or the hydrophobic tails are facing inwards towards the center of the particle. And at the core or center of the particle are present fat soluble vitamins including retinyl esters and other types of lipids such as triacylglycerols and cholesterol esters. Now we are going to discuss the mechanism of action of vitamin A, specifically retinoic acid. Now, before I begin to explain the mechanism of action, I would like to point out that vitamin A has a similar mechanism of action like steroid hormones. So, it has a steroid hormone like mechanism of action. And I'm going to explain the mechanism with the help of a flow chart. Okay, as we have discussed earlier, vitamin A is stored inside the liver in the form of retinyl esters. Now, when different body tissues need vitamin A, then vitamin A is going to be converted to retinol inside the liver and is going to be released into the bloodstream in the form of retinol. Retinol binding protein is going to transport retinol to the target tissues, and once inside the target tissues, retinol is going to be oxidized to form retinoic acid. Now, this retinoic acid is basically going to exert its biological effects. And how does it achieve that? It enters the nucleus of the target cells, and inside the nucleus, it combines with specific receptors known as retinoic acid receptors or RAR. Now, this retinoic acid and RAR complex binds to specific regions on the DNA which are known as retinoic acid response elements, which are also abbreviated as RARE, retinoic acid response elements. So after interacting with these retinoic acid response elements, retinoic acid is now able to affect the expression of specific genes, and this in turn is going to affect the synthesis of different specific proteins. So what is retinoic acid doing? Basically, it is interacting with specific regions on DNA known as retinoic acid response elements, and as a result of this interaction, it is going to affect the gene expression, which in turn is going to affect the synthesis of specific proteins. So according to the type of body cells and the requirement of the body, retinoic acid is going to either increase or decrease the synthesis of specific proteins, and this forms the basis of different roles of vitamin A inside the body, as it exerts its effects in different body tissues by affecting the synthesis of different types of proteins. An example is epithelial tissues, in which retinoic acid regulates the synthesis of a structural protein known as keratin. So, in case of vitamin A deficiency, excessive keratinization occurs in different epithelial tissues, which results in many troubling signs and symptoms, some of which we are going to discuss later. So, I hope I was able to clarify the mechanism of action of retinoic acid. I am going to repeat once more. So, retinol in the bloodstream is carried to target tissues with the help of retinol binding protein, and once inside the target tissues, retinol is going to be converted into retinoic acid, and this retinoic acid enters the nucleus and binds with specific receptors known as retinoic acid receptors. And now this complex is going to bind to specific regions on the DNA known as retinoic acid response elements, and after binding with these specific regions on DNA, retinoic acid is going to affect or regulate the synthesis of different specific genes, which translates into its effects on the synthesis of different specific proteins. So this slide shows the different functions of vitamin A in our body, and it also shows the use of synthetic forms of vitamin A in the treatment of different diseases. So vitamin A can also be used as a therapeutic agent in different diseases. So as we have discussed earlier, vitamin A is vital for many different systems in our body, such as reproductive system, immune system, for the promotion of growth, and for the maintenance and differentiation of different epithelial tissues in the body. And the role of vitamin A in vision we are going to discuss in detail later. So apart from all these functions, vitamin A can also be used therapeutically for a number of different diseases such as psoriasis, acne, and promyelocytic leukemia. So in case of psoriasis and acne, vitamin A can be used topically. By topically, I mean it can be applied on the skin, and its beneficial effect is due to its ability to affect the synthesis of different structural proteins. So in this diagram you can see uh, the use of all trans retinoic acid, also known as tretinoin, in the treatment of psoriasis and in the treatment of acne. Now tretinoin is a synthetic form of vitamin A, and apart from this there are also other synthetic forms of vitamin A available as well, and all the synthetic forms of vitamins are retinoids. So in addition of skin or dermatologic conditions such as psoriasis and acne, vitamin A is also used in the treatment of certain neoplastic conditions or cancerous conditions such as promyelocytic leukemia. And once again, its beneficial effect in case of promyelocytic leukemia also results from the fact that vitamin A is able to affect the synthesis of different proteins in leukocytes. So now we are going to discuss the role of vitamin A in the visual system. So I want you to take note of these questions, and as I discuss the role of vitamin A in the visual system, you will learn the answer to these questions. So the questions are: what happens at night when you pass a car with headlights on? And the second question is, what happens when you enter a room with dim light after being in bright light for some time? So, in both these scenarios, people experience a sort of temporary blindness. And why that occurs? This is due to the role of vitamin A in the visual system, and we will learn their answers later in the lecture. Okay, before moving on to the role of vitamin A in vision, I want you to concentrate on this diagram. And right now, I want you to concentrate on just two parts of the eye. One is cornea, which is present at the front, and the other one is retina, which is present at the back of the eye. So, cornea is a transparent mucus, not mucus, epithelial layer which is present in front of the colored portion of the eye. So the colored portion of the eye is known as iris, and in front of the iris a transparent membrane is present known as cornea. And now retina. Retina is, as you can see, is present at the back of the eye, and retina is basically basically comprised of layers of different cells, and retina is the site of the eye where images are going to be formed. So inside the retina there are two types of cells, rods and cone cells, which are also known as photoreceptor cells, and these photoreceptors are involved in the visual process. Now vitamin A in the form of retinal is present inside these rod and cone cells in the form of a visual pigment known as rhodopsin. And rhodopsin is a visual pigment which is vital for vision, and this pigment is composed of vitamin A plus a protein known as opsin. So vitamin A plus opsin make up rhodopsin, which is the visual pigment found in rods and cones, and these rods and cones are basically photoreceptor cells that are involved in the visual process. So vitamin A in the form of 11 cis retinal forms the photosensitive component of the visual pigment rhodopsin. So 11 cis retinal combines with a protein known as opsin to form the visual pigment which is known as rhodopsin. And rhodopsin once again is composed of 11 cis retinal and opsin, and this rhodopsin is present in photoreceptor cells also known as rod and cone cells inside the retina. Rod cells mediate vision in dim light, whereas cone cells mediate visual acuity and color vision. So how is 11 cis retinal being a part of rhodopsin is so important in the process of vision? I will discuss that in the form of a diagram of a process known as visual cycle. So this diagram is showing a process known as visual cycle. So what happens when light falls on the retina, then 11 cis retinal, which is a component of rhodopsin, it is going to be converted to its isomeric form known as all trans retinal, and this all trans retinal is going to be released from rhodopsin, resulting in the formation of opsin and all trans retinal. Now this release of all trans retinal from the visual pigment rhodopsin is known as photo bleaching. It is known as photo bleaching because now the visual pigment rhodopsin is no longer available, and as a result of this isomerization of 11 cis retinal to all trans retinal and release of all trans retinal from the visual pigment rhodopsin, as a result of these processes, an electrical signal or an action potential is generated inside the retina, which is carried by the optic nerve to the brain, and the brain then processes this electrical signal into an image, and that is how we are able to see different objects, or we are able to view different images. So on exposure to light, 11 cis retinal from rhodopsin is converted to all trans retinal, and this generates an action potential which is carried by optic nerve to the brain, and the brain then processes that action potential or electrical signal into an image. So this is the entire visual process for which the visual pigment rhodopsin is required, and for rhodopsin 11 cis retinal is required. So what happens after the formation of 11 cis retinal to all trans retinal? Now this all trans retinal needs to be converted back to 11 cis retinal, so that 11 cis retinal can recombine with opsin to form the visual pigment rhodopsin, and so that uh, this rhodopsin can act in the process of vision. So how does all trans retinal convert back to 11 cis retinal? The steps or the biochemical reactions involved in the conversion of all trans-retinal to 11-cis-retinal are known as the visual cycle. So we need to convert all trans-retinal to 11-cis-retinal so that 11-cis-retinal can recombine with opsin to form the visual pigment rhodopsin, which is required for the visual pathway. So when all transretinal is formed, then it is going to be converted to all transretinol, and this all transretinol is going to be converted to all transretinyl ester, which is going to be converted to its isomeric form 11-cis retinol, and now this 11-cis retinol is going to be oxidized to form 11-cis retinal, and this 11-cis retinal is going to combine with opsin to reform rhodopsin, which is the visual pigment found in rods and cone cells. So all these biochemical reactions involved in the regeneration of 11-cis retinal and formation of rhodopsin are known as the visual cycle. I am going to repeat this cycle once again. On exposure to light, 11-cis retinal, which is a part of rhodopsin, it is going to be isomerized to all transretinal, and all transretinal is going to be released from rhodopsin, resulting in the formation of opsin and all transretinal. This process is going to generate an electrical signal which is carried by optic nerve to the brain, and the brain processes this electrical signal into an image. Now this all transretinal needs to be converted back to 11-cis retinal so that it can reform rhodopsin and the visual pathway can reoccur. The chemical reactions that are involved in the conversion of all transretinal to 11-cis retinal, they make up the visual cycle as seen in this diagram. So all transretinal is first converted to all transretinol, which is converted to all transretinyl ester. All transretinyl ester is then isomerized to 11-cis retinol, and this 11-cis retinol is going to be oxidized to 11-cis retinal, which is going to combine with opsin to reform rhodopsin. Now, the time it takes for regeneration of rhodopsin is known as dark adaptation time, and an important point to remember is that this dark adaptation time increases in case of vitamin A deficiency. So uh, remember the questions that we discussed at the beginning of the role of vitamin A in vision. One of those questions was, what happens when we enter a room with dim light after being in bright light for some time? So we experience a type of temporary blindness, and why that occurs? It occurs because of the process of photo bleaching. So on exposure to bright light, all the 11-cis retinal is isomerized to all transretinal, and rhodopsin is broken down into opsin and all transretinal. So the time it takes for regeneration of rhodopsin, during that time we are unable to view different objects because the visual pigment rhodopsin is no longer available. Photo bleaching has occurred and we are not able to see anything. So that during that time period or time span, we experience a type of temporary blindness due to the process of photo bleaching. Once rhodopsin is reformed, we are able to view things once again. And the same phenomenon occurs when, for example, at night we look into the headlights of a car and then we try to see other things, but we are unable to see that because the same process occurs. All the rhodopsin is gone, and the time that it takes to regenerate rhodopsin, during that time we are unable to see anything. So once rhodopsin is reformed, then we are able to see things again. So this is the definition of dark adaptation time that we have discussed before. The point to remember is that dark adaptation time increases in case of vitamin A deficiency. So now we are going to discuss vitamin A deficiency. Vitamin A deficiency most commonly occurs in extremes of age, for example, in babies or children of a young age, and in people of old age. And it can also be seen in undernutrition due to any cause. In fact, vitamin A deficiency is a major nutritional concern in poor societies. So, what happens in case of vitamin A deficiency? It is associated with a number of symptoms and signs such as night blindness, Bitot spots, xerophthalmia, keratomalacia, and an increased susceptibility to infections. As we have discussed before, vitamin A is required for the proper functioning of the immune system. So, in case of vitamin A deficiency, the affected individuals are more prone to develop different types of infections because their immune system is not working properly. So, apart from its effect on immune system, vitamin A deficiency also causes a number of visual symptoms such as night blindness. Now, night blindness, also known as nyctalopia, is the earliest sign of vitamin A deficiency, as the affected individuals are unable to see in dim light or at night due to a deficiency of vitamin A. And the reason we have just recently discussed in the role of vitamin A in vision. So, what are Bitot spots? Bitot spots are also a sign of vitamin A deficiency, and these are regions of excessive keratinization seen on conjunctiva. So, what is conjunctiva? Conjunctiva is an epithelial membrane which covers the eyeball and also the inner part of our eyelids. So, as you can see in this picture, there is a region of excessive keratinization seen on the conjunctiva that is lining the eyeball, and this region of excessive keratinization is termed as Bitot spot. So, this Bitot spot is also a sign of vitamin A deficiency. Now, xerophthalmia. It is also a sign of vitamin A deficiency, and it means excessive dryness of the cornea and conjunctiva. And if xerophthalmia is not treated, then it can lead to corneal ulceration and blindness. Now, keratomalacia once again is another sign of vitamin A deficiency, and what it means, keratomalacia means a softening of the cornea. Now, the cornea becomes so soft that it can also rupture, resulting in the collapse of the eye, and it is also one of the leading causes of blindness in poor socioeconomic groups. So now we are going to discuss the signs and symptoms associated with toxicity of vitamin A, also known as hypervitaminosis A. So hypervitaminosis A is not very common in our society, although it might occur with excessive use of vitamin A supplements, even though it is not very common. It is quite rare. But in some regions of the world, for example, the North Pole and the South Pole, people tend to ingest polar bear liver, and polar bear liver contains very high quantities of vitamin A, and these excessive quantities of vitamin A can lead to hypervitaminosis A. And the common manifestations that are associated with toxicity of vitamin A are disturbance in liver function and increase in the size of liver known as hepatomegaly. It is also associated with increase in cerebrospinal fluid pressure that results in very troubling signs and symptoms in the affected individuals, such as severe headache. So cerebrospinal fluid is a special type of fluid which is present in a specialized compartment in the brain and in the spinal column. And if the pressure of this fluid increases, it can result in different very troubling signs and symptoms, one of which are severe headache. So hypervitaminosis A is commonly associated with severe headache. Now, toxicity of vitamin A also causes disturbances in calcium metabolism, as a result of which decalcification of bones occurs, resulting in pain and tenderness of long bones. In addition, skin changes may also be seen, such as peeling of skin. So, this was all about vitamin A. Hope you were able to grasp some major concepts. In case of any queries, you can mail me. Thank you very much and best of luck.